Hello, all, and welcome. In our last episode, we heard from Dr. Guido Minaya, CEO and Chief Learning Officer of Minaya Learning Global Solutions, on how companies can get started down the path of a competency map model, including how higher ed is moving to a competency education model. Moving on, we continue the conversation discussing innovations in competency map corporate training. Today's episode focuses on corporate learning and development and continues the discussion on how to scale a competency based model. Stay tuned to learn more. Hello, Dr. Minaya. Welcome back again to the show.
Thank you, Dario. It's great to be back on with you.
So, we are continuing our conversation on innovations that help companies scale skill development through competency map models. What are factors to consider here?
Yeah, well, in our last episode, we took a look at how higher ed is changing when it comes to programs which better develop the future workforce. And we talked about how competency-based education in higher ed is helping students not only learn the theory of certain subject areas, but also include a way to demonstrate what they learn. So this is definitely a step forward in developing a better match from a workforce pipeline perspective. And really the next question is how to scale this to meet the needs of business at the speed that business moves in, right? Which is usually light speed. Well, and I believe we are getting better at connecting the dots between higher ed and industry. But at the end of the day, scale and speed are the determining factors of how truly effective this will be.
Now, is higher ed able to produce the talent pipeline presently needed in industry?
Well, let's just say that we still have a ways to go for us to collectively, from a end-to-end education system perspective, and that includes K-12, higher ed, and corporate training, to reach the scale and speed that industry now demands to stay competitive.
Okay. Well, is there an example of what could be improved?
Yes, for example, in the corporate learning and development sector, we use the term learning strategy. And this is not a term higher ed really uses. And the term needs assessment may not mean the same thing to a corporate learning and development instructional designer, as an example, versus what a university educator may mean by that. In corporate education, these two terms, learning strategy and needs assessment, are foundational to developing a curriculum and a course within that curriculum. And the goal is to impact skill development and improve performance in the corporate sector.
Yeah, it does really seem like there's a disconnect there.
Yes, but it's understandable. Higher ed and corporate L&D have historically been almost like separate silos in terms of education and the training curriculum. And my belief is that until we begin talking the same language, there's only so far higher ed can help the incredible changing demands on industry. And I know of several universities which have yet to leverage instructional design and content development to develop their own e-learning courses. And they, in essence, have professors do this work. And really, professors know the subject area, know it really well. But when it comes to instructional design and content dev, those two fields have advanced so much that if you're not trained in those fields, you create content that's not optimal and less engaging for learners. So this is not the way corporate L&D operates when it considers effectiveness, speed, and scale in developing ever-changing new mission-critical skills.
Yeah, that is interesting. So how did corporate learning and development evolve to reach its present level of effectiveness, speed, and scale?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that's a whole podcast series in itself. But a quick summary is that in corporate learning development, we as in most cases had to learn the hard way, right? We initially did have classroom-based instructors, and then as companies started to grow in size, multiple locations become regional, national, global, scaling became more important, right? Before we actually would have students, corporate students travel in from different parts of the state, the country, the world to attend an instructor-led class. That became extremely costly. So we had to figure out a way to scale. And that 20 years ago resulted in leveraging virtual instructor-led platforms. And in those early days, basically we took the course that an instructor was teaching face-to-face, right, in a regular classroom, and then we had that same course delivered virtually. So if you can imagine a 5-day, 40-hour traditional classroom course was taught the same way over a 5-day, 40-hour virtual class. So that's like 6 to 8 hours a day that you're behind a screen
Yeah.
and just painful.
Yeah, I could see how that would be painful. I'm presently enrolled in a university program, which is entirely online, and some classes are challenging to sit through. So others are better, but
Yeah, and in the corporate arena, we learned early on, again, based on the feedback like that you're giving now, that the courses needed to change, right? Our course developers began improving course content to be more engaging. And then really with the advent of online e-learning in the late 90s, like when learning management systems were introduced, the demand to create self-paced asynchronous e-learning courses grew. And this resulted in instructional design and content development becoming more of a technical role, right? Leveraging authoring
Mm.
tools and coding tools.
So what else happened to set the foundation for companies to scale?
Well, at the course level, leveraging a well thought out needs assessment based on competencies is a key step. And a needs assessment and learning strategy, again, based on the demands of industry, multi locations, now factor in scaling, right? And so I think in our next episode, I'd like to invite Susan Minaya to talk with us to share more on this important topic. Susan is an award-winning instructional design and learning strategy expert, and I think she can shed light into more specifics about both how needs assessments have evolved and how learning strategies have evolved.
Yeah, well, that does sound great. Well, again, thank you, Dr. Minaya, for sharing more on how to scale a competency-based model. As you mentioned, having Susan Minaya, the CEO and Chief Learning Strategist from Minaya Learning Global Solutions, come on and expand on needs assessments and learning strategies and how that can influence a company's need to scale will be really beneficial. I'm excited to hear about that. In the meantime, thank you again for your time, Dr. Minaya. Until
My
next
pleasure.
time.
Thanks, Dario.